My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 28 years old. 2 hours ago, I stepped off a Greyhound bus in Willow Creek after 6 months deployed in Kandahar. The desert's heat still clung to my skin. But here, back in Texas, the air felt different. Not warmer, colder, like something had died while I was gone. And maybe it had. Because the first thing I saw when I walked into County General's ER was my grandfather, pale, unconscious, and hooked up to a machine that wheezed every time it breathed for him. Tubes curled like vines around his arms. A ventilator hissed softly at his bedside. But what gutted me more than the beeping monitors and the sterile scent of antiseptic, was that my parents weren't here. Not my mom, not my dad, not a single familiar soul. Just a nurse who asked my name twice before muttering, "Oh, the Mitchell girl. No one thought you'd come." Then she said it, quietly, like it was no big deal. They're in Florida, on vacation. Vacation. While Grandpa Henry was lying here, half alive in an ICU bed, my parents were sipping margaritas under some beachfront sunshade. But what hurt the most wasn't just their absence. It was the silence. The way they hadn't called me. The way they hadn't told me anything. I had to find out from a stranger in scrubs. And in that moment, standing at the foot of his hospital bed, all I could think was, how could they let this happen to him? What they didn't know was that the second I spotted that worn duffel bag on the hospital floor, tucked beneath Grandpa's cot, dusty from some back closet, I recognized the leather patch stitched into the side. That bag didn't just carry clothes. It carried the one thing that would ruin everything they thought they'd hidden. If you've ever felt invisible at home, or if this story hits close to your heart, please tap like. It lets me know I'm not alone out here. How did I go from forgotten daughter to the only one left standing at his bedside? It started with the hum of fluorescent lights above, the kind that always flickered one too many times in emergency rooms. A faint buzz filled the air, almost blending with the rhythmic blip of Grandpa's heart monitor. The hospital smelled like floor polish and fear, the kind of fear that seeped through your pores, clung to your clothes, and didn't let go. I was still gripping the handle of my duffel like it was a weapon. My boots squeaked against the polished linoleum as I moved toward the nurse's desk. "Excuse me," I said. My voice came out rough, throat dry from travel, or maybe from holding back the sting in my eyes. "Where's Henry Mitchell's room?" The nurse, early 30s, tight bun, tired eyes, didn't even glance up from her clipboard. "You family?" I swallowed. "Granddaughter." She gave a slow blink, then pointed down the hallway. "Room 412, but don't expect a miracle." I didn't answer. I just walked. Each step felt heavier than the last. My boots hit the floor like echoes I couldn't erase. Left, right, until I reached the door. Room 412. The blinds were half drawn, casting pale stripes of gray across Grandpa's face. He looked smaller than I remembered, like someone had taken the old him, the proud, weather-worn veteran with a booming laugh, and folded him into this quiet, shrinking version. His chest rose and fell in slow, mechanical jerks. The ventilator wheezed. Beep, beep, beep. I stood there, frozen, my fingers twitching near the doorframe. I couldn't bring myself to speak. He had raised me when my mom was too busy, took me fishing, walked me to school, called me kiddo, even when I was taller than him. And now? Now I was staring at the shell of the only man who ever made me feel safe. I finally stepped forward, my footsteps muffled by the tile. I reached for his hand. It was cold, veined, motionless. My voice cracked when I whispered, "Hey, Grandpa, I'm here." Nothing. No flicker of recognition, no squeeze, just silence. I sat. The chair squealed under me. I unclipped my bag and dropped it gently beside my feet. The duffel landed with a soft thud. That's when I noticed it. The edge of something. Torn canvas peeking from the outer pocket. I leaned forward, heart pounding, and pulled it free. It was old. Frayed. A folded manila envelope sealed with cracked tape. My name, written in Grandpa's blocky handwriting, stared back at me in faded blue ink. I blinked hard. He wrote me something? I hadn't even opened it yet, but my palms were sweating. Something told me. This wasn't just a letter. Something told me it would explain the silence, the secrets. Maybe even why my parents had vanished to Florida and left him here. A soft knock on the door pulled me out of my daze. The nurse, the same one from the front desk. Her voice was quiet, careful. "Just so you know," she said, glancing over her shoulder like she wasn't supposed to talk, "we tried calling your folks, but they turned off their phones. They've been gone 4 days. Left a voicemail saying not to contact unless it's final decision time." I stared at her. My stomach twisted. "Final decision?" She nodded, pulling life support. I couldn't breathe. My throat closed up. Heat flushed my cheeks. Rage, shame, a scream I swallowed. "They just left?" I asked. The nurse's lips parted, then closed. She didn't have to say anything else. Her silence said it all. After she left, I sat alone with the envelope in my lap. Outside the window, the Texas night stretched wide and black. A couple neon letters from the urgent care sign buzzed through the blinds, casting faint reds and blues across the floor like a warning. My fingers brushed the edge of the envelope again. I wasn't ready to open it. Not yet. I needed a second to breathe, to figure out who I even was in this moment. Because the Sarah who boarded that bus this morning was just a tired soldier coming home, the Sarah sitting here now, she was the only one left to protect him, and maybe to uncover the truth. The lights in Grandpa's room buzzed faintly above, casting a sterile yellow sheen over the linoleum floor. I sat with the envelope still in my lap, my fingers running along its edges like the skin of some sleeping animal I wasn't ready to wake. I don't know how long I sat like that. Minutes, maybe longer, just listening to the mechanical rhythm of the ventilator, one breath in, one out, over and over, while the night curled tighter around the hospital walls. I finally peeled the tape, slow and cautious. The flap lifted with a faint crackle. Inside, just one sheet of paper, folded into thirds. I slid it out, held it with both hands, and began to read. The handwriting was shaky but unmistakably his. Grandpa's blocky, stubborn letters pressed deep into the page. "Sarah, if you're reading this, I didn't get to say goodbye, but this ain't just about me. There's something I never told your mom, something I kept hidden to protect you. Check the old drawer by my bed, the locked one. You'll know the key when you see it. I read it 3 times, eyes scanning for something more. Some line I'd missed, some name or clue or warning, but that was it, just a riddle. And a locked drawer." I folded the note again, slower this time. My chest felt tight. My mind was racing with 100 questions and 0 answers. What was he talking about? What was in the drawer? And why keep it from Mom? I rose quietly, moved to the small bedside table. It had 2 drawers, one open and cluttered with tissues and half-used lotion bottles. The other had a tiny brass keyhole, smudged from years of fingers trying to pry it open. I crouched, pulled open my duffel bag and sifted through the contents. Combat boots. A photo of me and Grandpa fishing when I was 9. A little green pouch he gave me before I left for basic. Said it belonged to his father. My fingers paused on it. Something inside shifted with a dull clink. I opened it and let the contents spill into my palm. A dull silver key with a curve like a question mark. No way. I turned back to the drawer, heart hammering. The key slid in, clicked. I hesitated, then pulled. It stuck for a second, years of neglect, but finally slid open. Inside was a single letter, yellowed and brittle at the edges, folded neatly and sealed with a strip of wax long cracked and crumbling. I reached for it, but my hand shook. Something about it felt wrong, sacred. Like opening it might unravel everything I thought I knew about this family. Still, I picked it up, and just then the door creaked. I turned fast, too fast, and nearly dropped the letter. A woman stood there in the doorway, the same nurse from earlier. She stepped inside, gaze flicking between me and the open drawer. Her eyes were calm, but her voice had an edge. "You're not supposed to go through his things." I closed the drawer slowly. "He left a note, said I'd find answers here." She stared at the envelope in my hand. "I don't think you're ready for what's in that." Her words were soft, almost kind, but something about them chilled me. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then looked at Grandpa. "I've worked here for 12 years. Henry's a good man. But even good men carry things they don't want anyone to see." I stood there unsure what to say. The envelope felt heavier than paper now. It felt like a loaded gun. She turned to go but stopped at the doorway. "If you do read it," she said, "don't read it here, not in front of him." Then she was gone. I found an empty waiting room down the hall. The lights were dim, the chairs lined in stiff rows, each one squeaking under the weight of ghosts long gone. Outside the window, the parking lot stretched into silence, broken only by the flicker of a faulty street lamp. I sat and turned the envelope over in my hands. No name, no return address, just a faint impression pressed into the paper, like someone once held it too tightly. I peeled the wax seal apart. The flap lifted with a reluctant sigh. The letter inside was older, typed on a real typewriter. The ink faded to a dusty gray. There were water stains across the bottom, like someone had cried over it years ago. I started reading. It wasn't from Grandpa. It was to him. "Henry, I warned you this would catch up to us. If you don't tell Linda the truth, she's going to destroy everything we built. There's more at stake than just the land. The papers are in the box buried by the oak. If you're reading this, I'm gone. But you still have time to do the right thing." I read it twice, then a third time. My pulse was pounding now. My fingers clenched the edge of the page until it nearly tore. Who wrote this? What box? What land? And what truth? I stared out the window, trying to steady my breathing. The air in the room had turned thick. My shirt clung to my back. The hum of the overhead lights began to feel like a scream in my ears. Everything I thought I understood about Grandpa, about our family, was cracking at the edges. He lied to her, not just lied. Hid something big enough to warrant a secret drawer, a hidden letter, and an entire plan buried under an oak tree. I folded the letter, tucked it into my jacket. As I stood to leave, the lights flickered. Then I heard it. Footsteps, soft, quick, just outside the waiting room. I peeked through the narrow glass slit in the door. No one. But I swear, just before the hall went still again, I saw a figure rounding the corner, a flash of long hair, a white coat, a nurse, or someone else. I stepped out, walked quickly back to Grandpa's room, my fingers wrapped tight around the letter in my pocket. He was still there, still unconscious, machines still breathing for him. I stood at his bedside and whispered, "What did you do?" He didn't move, but his hand twitched. Just once. Barely enough to notice. Still, I did. And suddenly I wasn't sure what scared me more. That he was waking up, or that someone out there didn't want him to. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Grandpa's trembling hand. The letter's words looped through my brain like a riddle I wasn't smart enough to solve. There's more at stake than just the land. Do the right thing. The sun was already up by the time I left the hospital. Pale gold light filtered through the parking lot haze. I stood on the curb, duffel over one shoulder, and dialed Mom for the 5th time. Straight to voicemail. Again. I stared at the phone in my hand like it might give me a reason. A flicker. A text. Anything. Nothing. I almost went back inside. Back to Grandpa's room. Back to that humming box of machines. But then I saw it. A blue rental car pulling into the hospital's drop-off lane. Windows tinted. Florida plates. My stomach sank. The driver's door cracked open. Out stepped my mother, Linda Mitchell. Tan, manicured, and still wearing aviator sunglasses. The kind that probably cost more than my monthly pay overseas. She didn't see me at first. She was laughing into her phone, loud, carefree. Her lips curled around a straw in an iced coffee she didn't even need. She looked like a woman arriving for brunch, not someone whose father was fighting for his life. I walked toward her slowly. She spotted me halfway and froze. The laugh died in her throat. "Sarah," she said, slipping her phone into her purse like it burned her. "I didn't know you were here?" I cut in. My voice came out too flat, too calm. She adjusted her sunglasses even though we were in the shade. "We just got in last night. We were held up in Tampa." 4 days, Mom. He's been like this for 4 days. She sighed, like I was the one causing trouble. "Look, honey, there was nothing we could have done. The doctors said—" "You didn't even call me." Her mouth twitched. "I didn't want to worry you while you were still overseas." "I got discharged 2 weeks ago." She looked away, pretending to smooth her blouse. Her hand trembled slightly. That's when it hit me. She wasn't surprised to see me. She was annoyed, And the part that broke something inside me, she didn't ask about Grandpa, not once. I took a breath, tried to keep my voice from shaking. "I saw the note," I said. "The one he left for me. I found the drawer." Her eyes snapped back to mine. A flicker. Fear? Anger? I couldn't tell. She blinked once, slowly. "What note?" I didn't answer, just studied her face. "Mom, what's going on with the house?" She froze. It was a half-second reaction, just long enough. Then she laughed, a practiced, brittle sound. "What are you talking about?" I stepped closer. "I saw the letter, the one in the drawer. Someone warned Grandpa about you, about destroying everything." Her smile cracked. "You don't know what you're talking about." I pulled the folded page from my jacket, held it out. She didn't take it. She didn't even look at it. Her voice dropped. "You have no idea the sacrifices I've made for this family." "For this family?" I said louder now. "You mean the family you abandoned while Grandpa was hooked to a ventilator?" She took off her sunglasses then. Her eyes were sharp, glassy, tired in a way makeup couldn't hide. "I stayed away for a reason, Sarah. You wouldn't understand. Your grandfather, he wasn't the man you think he was." My breath hitched. "Then explain it to me." She looked past me, toward the hospital doors, then back at me, jaw clenched. "I didn't tell you about his condition because we needed time to figure things out, me and your father, about the house, the paperwork." I stared at her. "Paperwork?" "Henry's will wasn't updated. And you know how expensive long-term care is. We were trying to sell the house before the hospital billed us into the grave." My throat went dry. My fists curled at my sides. "He's still alive, Mom." "Barely." My hand shot out before I could stop myself, not to hit her, but to grab her shoulder, firm, shaking. "Don't talk about him like that." Her eyes narrowed. "Do you know what it costs to keep him breathing, Sarah? Do you? He's 87, with no quality of life left. He wouldn't want this." "You don't get to decide that." "I do," she snapped, "because I'm the one who's been cleaning up his messes for 30 years. I'm the one who stayed when he started losing it. You," she laughed bitterly, "you come home after what, one deployment, and think you know everything?" I took a step back. The heat on my face wasn't just rage, it was shame, because a tiny part of me did wonder. Had I been too late? Had I stayed gone too long? But another voice inside me, cold, calm, stubborn, rose above it. "I'm not leaving," I said. "Not until I figure out what he was hiding, what you were hiding." She stared at me, hard. Then something in her face shifted. Not guilt, not remorse, just calculation. "You're not in the will," she said. The words hit harder than I expected. "I didn't ask to be," I whispered. She looked at me like I was stupid. "No. But your name complicates things, especially now that you're here, asking questions, stirring up ghosts." I said nothing. She moved past me toward the sliding doors. "You want the truth?" she said over her shoulder. "Be careful. Sometimes the truth buries people faster than lies." She disappeared into the building. I stood there in the parking lot, the air hot and thick around me. Sweat pooled at the base of my neck, but I didn't move. I was shaking, but not from fear. She'd made it clear. She wasn't just protecting herself. She was willing to bury Grandpa's legacy to do it. I opened the letter one more time, studied the last line again. Do the right thing. I was going to, even if it meant tearing everything down. But first, I needed help, and I knew just the person I had to find. The man Mom never talked about, the one who vanished years ago, Uncle Jake. The town of Willow Creek hadn't changed. Same cracked sidewalks, same sleepy diners clinging to the edges of Main Street like old porch dogs. But now everything felt tilted, like someone had swapped the sun for a heat lamp and pulled the sky a little too low. I drove Grandpa's rusted pickup out past the hospital and toward the west side of town, toward the one place I thought he might be. Jake. The name felt like a pebble in my boot. My mother never said it out loud, not even once. I'd only ever heard it from Grandpa, and only when he was too tired to filter himself. "Your Uncle Jake was born stubborn," he'd once told me when I was 12. "Vanished when your mom turned 20. Couldn't stand the way she ran the house." At the time, I thought he meant something small, a petty sibling fight, but now I wasn't so sure. I pulled up outside Miller's Diner. Midday sun beat down on the roof, warping the faded Coca-Cola sign in the window. The metal door creaked when I pushed it open. The air inside hit me like a memory, grease, burnt coffee, and something sweet, maybe peach pie left under a heat lamp too long. It took a second for my eyes to adjust. Then I saw him. Back booth. Alone. A man with silver in his beard and dust on his boots. He was stirring his coffee with one hand, but not drinking it. Just watching it swirl. His eyes flicked up the second I stepped inside. Sharp. Knowing. He didn't look surprised. I walked toward him slowly, my heart loud in my ears. He leaned back, arms stretched over the booth seat. "You look like him," he said. I didn't sit. "You're Jake?" He nodded. Didn't think I'd ever see Henry's girl. I hesitated, then slid into the seat across from him. The vinyl was warm from the sun, sticky against my thighs. "I found the letter," I said. He didn't ask which one. "Figured you would," he said, setting the spoon down. It clinked softly against the chipped ceramic. He kept it locked up long enough. I studied him. Weathered hands, sun-damaged skin, a calmness that felt unnatural after everything that had happened. "Why now?" I asked. "Why show up after all these years?" He smiled. Not the warm kind, the kind people give when the truth's too heavy to carry politely. "Because someone's finally asking the right questions." I leaned in. "My mom, she's trying to sell the house. Cover it up. She said Grandpa's just a burden now." Jake's eyes didn't move, but his jaw flexed. "She's been after that house since before I left town," he said. "Even back then, she treated Henry like some old broken chair. Too big to throw out, too proud to fix." His voice was low, steady. But I caught it. The way his fingers curled slightly on the table. The way his knee bounced once, then stilled. "I thought you were gone," I said. "No one's seen you in over a decade." Jake tilted his head like that fact amused him. "I stayed gone," he said. "That's different." He looked past me toward the diner's front window. Dust floated in the sunbeam like drifting ash. "Your mom made it real clear I wasn't welcome after what happened with Dad. She called me a mistake, said I was just another secret Henry should have buried." I blinked. "What do you mean, secret?" Jake's smile vanished. "I'm not just your uncle," he said, voice rough now. "I'm Henry's son." The words landed like a slap. I stared at him. "What?" He nodded. "Born from a woman your mom hated, a woman he loved long before he ever met your grandma." My stomach twisted. "That makes you—" Jake nodded again. "Her half-brother. She's been trying to erase me since I was 17. The booth felt smaller now, the air tighter. All those years I thought Mom was cold, controlling. But this was something else. "Why didn't Grandpa tell me?" "He wanted to," Jake said. "But he was afraid she'd cut you off too. He knew Linda had a way of making people disappear without ever laying a hand on them." I swallowed hard. "Is this about the inheritance?" I asked. "The letter said something about land, about papers under the oak tree." Jake chuckled dryly. "Of course he used that damn tree." He shook his head. "It's not just about money, it's about legacy. That land wasn't just Henry's, it was ours, mine, and hers. But Linda? She wants it all, and she'll burn whoever she needs to get it." I sat back, mind racing. Everything I thought I knew about this family, about my mother, was unraveling faster than I could keep up. Jake leaned in. "Listen," he said, voice suddenly sharp. "You being back, it changes things. She won't like it. You dig too deep, she'll come after you too." "I'm not scared of her," I said. "You should be." The silence between us stretched long. Then his eyes softened, just slightly. "I never got to know you," he said. "Not really, but you're Henry's blood. And you're standing here. That's more than most ever did." I nodded. "I want to help," I said. Jake looked at me, searching my face like he was trying to decide if I meant it. Finally, he slid a napkin across the table. On it, a name and an address scribbled in shaky ink. "Go here," he said. "Talk to Emily. She's a nurse at County General. She's been looking after Dad longer than anyone." "How do you know her?" "She used to leave notes for me. Quiet little updates. Tucked into church bulletins, behind the bench by the river. Thought I was gone, but she still left them." He stood then, reaching for his jacket. "Just be careful. You're not the only one watching now." I froze. "What do you mean?" But he was already walking out, leaving his coffee half full and his past dripping behind him like muddy boot prints on tile. I sat there alone in the booth, the napkin in my hand. Outside, a truck backfired. Somewhere behind the diner, a dog barked once, then stopped. I looked out the window toward the street, and for just a second, I thought I saw someone watching me from across the road, tall, still, too still, but when I blinked, they were gone. The napkin with Emily's name and address sat in the passenger seat like a dare. I stared at it through the windshield as the afternoon heat turned the truck's cabin into an oven. Sweat traced slow paths down my back, sticking my shirt to the seat. I rolled down the window. The air outside was thick, still, and carried the faint smell of sunburnt grass and exhaust. I didn't know what I was walking into, just that Grandpa trusted her, Jake trusted her, and trust in my family was a currency nearly extinct. County General loomed ahead, same brick walls, same buzzing fluorescent lights bleeding through the lobby windows. I parked on the side this time by the staff lot. Less foot traffic, fewer eyes. I found her near the vending machines, in a small alcove that smelled faintly of burnt popcorn and antiseptic. Emily. Mid-30s, hair in a low bun, scrubs wrinkled like she'd been running since dawn. She was stirring powdered creamer into a paper cup of coffee, but her eyes flicked up the moment I approached. "You're Henry's granddaughter," she said, no trace of question. I nodded. She didn't invite me to sit, just took a sip of coffee, then leaned back against the counter, watching me. "I heard you've been asking about him," she said, "and about your mom." "I just want the truth," I said quietly. A silence stretched between us, long, brittle. Then she sighed and looked down at her cup. "You didn't hear this from me." My heart jumped. "I've worked here a long time," she said, "long enough to know the walls have ears, and longer to know when someone's being watched." That word stuck in my throat. Watched. "What do you mean?" Emily glanced over her shoulder, then back at me, her fingers tightened around the cup, denting the rim. "A few months ago, a man started showing up. Not family, said he was a friend. Always came late, just after visiting hours. Said he had Henry's permission." I frowned. "What did he look like?" She hesitated. "Tall, dark jacket, wore a ball cap pulled low, never said his name." A chill slipped down my spine. I thought of the shadow outside the diner, the one that vanished when I blinked. What was he doing? Emily lowered her voice. "Mostly just sat by Henry's bed, sometimes whispered to him. Once I caught him rifling through the drawer by the window." My stomach turned. "The one with the letter?" She nodded slowly. "He was looking for something, and he didn't find it because Henry had already moved it. He told me, quietly, just before the stroke, keep it safe from the wrong hands." Her voice broke slightly at the end. I felt myself sway, gripped the back of a nearby chair. "Why didn't you report him?" "I did, but security stretched thin at night, and he always vanished before anyone showed up. No name, no badge, no proof." She took another sip of coffee. Her hand shook now. "There's something else," she said. "I probably shouldn't tell you." I looked at her. "Please." She glanced down the hallway again, then pulled something from her scrub pocket, a small, crumpled sticky note, written in all caps, "Oak, box, not safe." "I found this tucked under Henry's mattress last week," she said. "I think it was meant for you." My mouth went dry. The oak tree, the same one Grandpa mentioned in the letter, the one Jake cursed at like it held a century of secrets. "Do you think the man knew about it?" Emily didn't answer, just looked at me with eyes that were tired and scared. I folded the note carefully and tucked it into my wallet. "What else do I need to know?" I asked. She stared at me a moment longer. Then, her voice barely above a whisper, "Your mother isn't just trying to erase the past, she's paying someone to help her do it." The air left my lungs. "What?" Emily nodded. "That man? He wasn't working alone. I overheard her on the phone, something about transferring funds, setting things in motion. She said if Henry didn't pass soon, she'd make sure the process speeds up." I felt the blood drain from my face, the beeping machines, the oxygen tubes, the whisper of decisions made in closed rooms. "Are you saying she tried to—" "I'm saying Emily cut in, her voice tight. "You need to be careful, and you need to move fast." A door slammed at the end of the hallway. We both jumped. Emily straightened. "You should go, and whatever you're planning, don't do it alone." I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me one last time. "He trusts you," she said, "more than anyone. Don't let him down." Outside, the air was thicker than before. The clouds had started to gather over Willow Creek, gray and heavy, like the sky was holding its breath. I climbed into the truck, heart pounding like war drums. The oak, the box, the man with no name, my mother, pulling the strings with blood money, and somewhere in the middle of it, my grandfather, too weak to speak, but still fighting from his hospital bed. I drove with one hand on the wheel and the other clutching the sticky note like a lifeline. The road out of town curved through fields of brittle grass and rusted fences, past memories I didn't know I had until they clawed their way back. When I reached the Mitchell property, I killed the engine and stepped out. There it was, the oak, massive, ancient, its gnarled branches sprawled over the yard like arms outstretched to shield or strangle. I walked toward it slowly, boots crunching over dry leaves. My fingers brushed the bark as I circled the base, eyes scanning for something, anything that didn't belong. Then I saw it. A patch of disturbed soil, small, recently turned. I dropped to my knees and started digging with my bare hands. Dirt packed under my fingernails. Sweat trickled down my temple. My breath came hard and fast. And then, wood. A box. I pulled it free, heart thundering. I was about to open it when a twig snapped behind me. I froze, slowly turned, and saw a figure standing at the edge of the clearing, watching. The figure stepped out from the tree line like a shadow peeled off the dusk. My hand clenched tighter around the wooden box, its corners biting into my palm. Then the voice came, familiar, low, raw. "Put that down, Sarah." Jake. I didn't relax. His boots crunched across the leaves as he moved toward me. His eyes landed on the box, then flicked up to meet mine. "I wasn't sure if you'd find it," he said quietly. "I did," I said, "and I'm opening it." Jake didn't argue. He just crouched beside me, the fading sun casting long lines across his face. The silence between us buzzed with crickets and the faint rustle of wind through the oak's branches. I wiped the dirt from the lid, heart pounding. Every second stretched thin. Then I lifted it open. Inside was a stack of papers, brittle with time, corners curled like they were afraid to be read. On top, a photograph. I picked it up slowly. 2 people, young, smiling. Grandpa, and a woman I didn't recognize. Dark hair, soft eyes, holding a baby wrapped in a white blanket. Jake reached out and gently took the photo from my hand. "That's my mother," he said. "Henry took this the day I was born." I stared at him. "She's not Grandma." "No," he said softly. "She was the woman before her." His fingers hovered over the edge of the box, then pulled out a folded legal document, yellowed and creased. "I asked him once if he'd ever tell Linda about me. About us," Jake murmured. "He said it would destroy her." His voice caught on the last word. He handed me the document. It was a birth certificate, Jake's name. Henry Mitchell listed as father, no mother's name. I read it twice. My brain tried to make sense of it, but my heart already knew. He wasn't just my uncle. He was my mother's brother. And Grandpa had hidden him in the margins of our lives. I looked at Jake. Really looked. "How long have you known?" "Since I was 14, he said, when Henry finally admitted it. Said he'd been sending money to my mom in secret, trying to make things right without stirring the family. "And Mom?" My voice was dry, sharp. "She never knew?" "She knew," he said. "She just refused to believe it. Or maybe she did, but pretended otherwise. When I showed up at the house once, she called me a fraud, told me to stay away from you." He looked down at the box again. "She said I'd ruin everything." I stood slowly, the box clutched against my chest. My legs felt unsteady, like the ground had shifted. "This changes everything," I whispered. Jake stood too, brushing dirt off his jeans. "It was never about just the land," he said. "It's about who gets to decide what legacy means. Linda's been rewriting history for years. Grandpa, he just let her." I thought about the hospital, About the machines and the blinking lights and the way Grandpa's fingers had twitched under mine. I think he regrets it, I said. All of it. Jake nodded once. Then his voice dropped. There's more. At the bottom of the box. I knelt again, setting the lid aside. Beneath the papers was a key. Small, brass, old. It was tied with a red ribbon, the kind you'd use to wrap a Christmas gift no one wanted. What's this for? I asked. Jake's face darkened. There's a safe deposit box. I was never given the key, but I think that's where he hid the rest. I stared at it in my hand. It was warm from the sun, but somehow felt cold against my skin. I didn't ask what was in it. I didn't want to guess, because whatever it was, Linda didn't want us to find it. Jake watched me with that same guarded look from the diner. I'm in this now, I told him. All the way. I know, he said. That's what scares me. The breeze picked up. The oak tree groaned like it had been holding secrets too long. Then Jake spoke again, softer this time. There's something you should know about your mom. I turned. She wasn't always like this. I didn't respond. She changed after Henry cut her off from the will, he said. Said she wasn't responsible enough, that she didn't value the land. She's been fighting to reclaim it ever since. I shook my head. So all of this, Grandpa on life support, the sale, the lies, it's revenge? Jake's jaw tightened. She thinks the land is hers by blood, but legally, if Henry dies and this key ends up in the wrong hands... He didn't have to finish the sentence. A branch snapped in the woods behind us. I spun, but this time, no one was there. We stood still for a long moment, listening. The sound didn't come again. Jake looked at me. We need to move, fast. I nodded, slipping the key into my jacket pocket. My fingers trembled against the fabric. We walked back toward the truck. The sky had gone dark at the edges. A storm was rolling in. I thought about Emily's warning, about the man with no name, about the money Mom was transferring behind hospital doors. I turned to Jake before we reached the driveway. If she finds out we have this, she already knows, he said. I froze. What? Jake's eyes scanned the road. She's been watching you. Us. You think that figure outside the diner was random? My stomach dropped. She's not waiting for Henry to die, he said. She's trying to force it. A flash of lightning lit up the clouds overhead. I gripped the box tighter. She won't win, I said. Jake's voice was steady. Then we better be ready. Behind us, thunder cracked through the sky like a warning shot. The storm hadn't let up. Thunder rolled over the hills like a warning I couldn't ignore, and by the time I reached the house, my boots were soaked through. The front porch light flickered overhead, weak, yellow, and swinging slightly in the wind like it couldn't decide whether to stay or go. Inside, it was too quiet. No TV, no humming appliances, just the faint creak of old wood shifting in the storm. Linda was waiting for me. She stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, a glass of wine untouched on the table beside her. Her lipstick was fresh, her smile wasn't. "Took you long enough?" she said. I dropped my keys onto the console by the door. My jacket was dripping rain onto the hardwood, but I didn't care. "Were you watching us at the Oak?" I asked. Her eyes didn't flinch. "That depends. Were you digging up things that don't belong to you?" I stepped closer, the air between us thick with whatever storm had started outside and bled its way indoors. "I found the box," I said. "I know about Jake." The smile vanished. "So what?" she snapped. "He's nothing. A ghost Henry kept around to feel less guilty. He's your brother." "No," she hissed. "He's a parasite." Her voice echoed slightly off the bare walls. I noticed the bookshelf was emptier than it used to be. Boxes by the door. Labeled, sorted. She was packing. "You've already started clearing out the house," I said. Her hands dropped to her sides, fingers twitching once, then folding neatly in front of her. "This place is a weight," she said coldly. "Your grandfather should have let it go years ago, but he clung to it like it was the last thread holding this family together." Maybe because it was. Her jaw tightened. She walked to the side table and picked up a manila folder, flipping it open like a lawyer mid-trial. "I had the paperwork drafted," she said. "Power of attorney. All you have to do is sign." I stared at the folder like it might bite. "You think I'd hand you the right to kill him off?" She scoffed. Don't be dramatic. It's a legal formality. The hospital can't keep him on life support forever. I crossed the room in 2 steps and slammed the folder shut. You knew what he was hiding, I said. You knew about Jake, about the land, the safe deposit key. You lied. She didn't even blink. Of course I lied. That man stole everything from me. My childhood, my security, my future. And now you, little army girl, think you're going to come back and fix it all with your noble heart and daddy's last breath? She moved closer, voice low and sharp as broken glass. You don't know the first thing about this family. You grew up under his wing, thinking he was some hero. But he was weak. And weak men don't deserve empires. Her words cut deep. Deeper than I expected. Because she was right about one thing. I had believed in Grandpa. Even when I didn't understand him, I trusted the way he looked at me. Like I mattered. Is that why you hired someone? I asked, my voice trembling now. To force his death? She paused, just for a moment. And that moment was enough. You should leave, she said, stepping back, before you do something you regret. I'm not going anywhere. She picked up the wine glass and sipped it slowly, like we were just 2 women arguing over dinner reservations. You think you can stop this? You think Jake's going to save you? She laughed, bitter and hollow. He'll run the second it gets messy. He always does. I'm not counting on Jake, I said. I'm counting on the truth. She turned toward the window, watching the rain smear against the glass. There is no truth in this house, Sarah. Just survival. She left the folder on the table and walked upstairs without another word. I stood there, chest heaving, rain still dripping from my clothes. My fists clenched at my sides, nails biting into my palms. Everything inside me screamed to burn the folder, to run to the hospital and scream the truth. But I couldn't, not yet. Instead, I opened the folder. The power of attorney paperwork was all there, pre-filled. Witness lines blank, but my name typed in bold where a signature would go. A pen lay on top, mocking me. I didn't touch it. I needed air. I stepped out onto the porch, rain still pouring, and let it soak me through. I leaned on the railing and closed my eyes, my breath shaking. The wind tugged at my hair. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once, then silence, and then a light flicked on across the yard. The old barn. I froze. It hadn't been used in years. Grandpa kept it locked since before I left for basic. Said it held things best left untouched. But the light inside glowed warm and yellow now. Someone was in there. I stepped off the porch, boots sinking slightly into the wet grass. My hands clenched tighter with each step. The rain muffled the sound of my feet, but my heartbeat roared in my ears. At the barn door, I paused. The light was real. It buzzed from an old bulb overhead. I reached for the handle. Cold, rusted. I pulled. Inside, dust floated like slow-moving ghosts through the light. And at the center, beneath the old rafters, a chair, facing the back wall, and someone sitting in it. The barn smelled of old hay and motor oil. Dust hung in the warm glow of a single dangling bulb like ash in stale air. I stepped inside, heartbeat thudding loud enough to drown the rain drumming on the tin roof. The figure in the chair didn't move. He sat still, back straight, arms resting on his thighs, head tilted slightly like he'd been waiting, watching. His outline was solid but unfamiliar. Dark jacket, cap pulled low. My hand inched to my pocket. No weapon, just lint and a receipt. Who are you? My voice came out sharp, too steady for how fast my pulse was racing. No answer. I stepped closer. Say something. The man's head turned just slightly, enough for the light to catch the side of his face. Young, maybe late 30s. Clean-shaven, calm. Sarah Mitchell, he said at last. His voice was quiet, smooth, like ice on glass. I stopped walking. How do you know my name? He didn't answer, just looked at me. I glanced around. No weapon, no phone, just old tools rusting on hooks, cobwebs draped like curtains between rafters. If he lunged, there'd be no one to hear me scream over the storm. I squared my shoulders. What do you want? He smiled faintly. You're asking the wrong question. Then what's the right one? He leaned forward. Who wants you gone? My stomach tightened. You work for her? I asked. Linda? He didn't flinch. I work for whoever pays. I took a step back. You were the one in the hospital, I said. In Grandpa's room. You went through his drawer. I was looking for something that didn't belong to him. You mean the letter? His silence said yes. I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the tremble. What are you doing here? I came to warn you. My laugh cracked. Right. You sneak into barns and hospitals for the good of people? He stood now, slowly. Not aggressive, just tall. I was told to pressure your mother, he said, to get her to move fast, but she changed the plan. I stared at him, throat tight. She told you to hurt him. A pause. She didn't need to, he said. She made it clear what she wanted and what she was willing to lose to get it. I could hardly breathe. The walls of the barn felt like they were shrinking, pushing in. Why are you telling me this? He looked toward the door, like he was checking for shadows. Because I've seen people like her before. But you're different. You might still walk away with your soul intact. Not if I let her kill him. His jaw flexed. She already thinks she has. It's just paperwork now, a form, a signature. I thought of the folder on the table, the pen waiting like a loaded weapon. What happens if I don't sign? I asked. She'll find another way. He reached into his coat, and my breath caught, but it was just a folded envelope. He placed it on the stool beside the chair. What is that? A copy of the transfer receipt, money that changed hands. I didn't move. Use it, he said, or don't. But don't wait too long. He turned to go, boots crunching softly. His hand paused on the doorframe. Someone's been watching you, he added. Not just me. My mouth went dry. Who? He looked over his shoulder, eyes dark, unreadable. Ask your uncle. Then he disappeared into the rain. I stood there alone, staring at the empty chair, the envelope beside it. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to reach for it. The paper was damp. Inside, exactly what he said. A wire transfer from an anonymous account. The memo line read simply, "Final arrangement." My stomach turned. The storm outside had quieted to a drizzle, but inside my chest it raged louder than ever. I walked back to the house, shoes squelching with every step. The lights were off. Linda was gone. I didn't care. I paced the kitchen floor with the envelope clutched in one hand and the safe deposit key in the other. What was the end game? Kill Henry, bury the past, cash in. I reached for my phone and called Jake. He answered on the second ring. I need you, I said. Where? Home now. I didn't wait for him to ask questions. I just hung up. My hands wouldn't stop twitching. Every light I passed, I turned off. The house felt too exposed, too watched. I sat at the window and stared out into the dark, the barn light still glowing like a beacon. Jake arrived 20 minutes later, headlights sweeping across the porch like searchlights. He came in soaked, face tense. What happened? He asked. I handed him the envelope. He read it. His eyes narrowed, his knuckles whitened. She paid him off, he said, to make sure Henry didn't wake. She paid someone to erase him, I said. And he just warned me someone else is watching, said you'd know. Jake looked at me, and for the first time since he came back into my life, he hesitated. What is it? I pushed. He ran a hand through his wet hair, took a shaky breath. There's someone else who wanted the land, he said. Years ago, a developer. He came around when Linda first tried to sell it. Grandpa refused. So? So Linda didn't take no well. She started sending letters, and someone started showing up outside the house. Not just him, others. Quiet, always watching. Henry thought it was coincidence. I didn't. I swallowed hard. Why didn't you say something sooner? Because I thought it stopped when I left. We both stood there in silence, until I saw it. A shadow, outside the window, standing still under the dripping trees, watching. The shadow outside the window didn't move. It just stood there beneath the rain-soaked trees, still, watching as if waiting for me to blink. Jake stepped beside me and followed my gaze. Get away from the glass, he said, voice low. I backed up, but kept my eyes locked on that figure. The porch light flickered above the swing, casting dull amber halos across the yard. Wind pushed the branches, but the silhouette remained, until it didn't. In a blink, it was gone. I stepped out onto the porch, barefoot, heart hammering. The rain had turned to mist, curling along the steps and the tall grass like breath from an unseen mouth. Jake grabbed my arm. He's not here for answers, he said. He's here for closure. By morning, the clouds had broken open. Sunlight streamed through the hospital windows, too bright for the way I felt inside. I hadn't slept. Jake and I had spent the night in shifts watching the yard, waiting for someone to return. But they never did. I stood outside Grandpa's ICU room, one hand on the cold metal doorknob. My reflection stared back from the glass, eyes puffy, jaw clenched. The envelope with the wire transfer sat in my coat pocket like a loaded secret. I hadn't told the nurses. Not yet. Not until I had one last shot. The last time I saw Grandpa, he looked half buried already. Machines lined his bed like guards, blinking and beeping in practiced rhythm. He hadn't moved, not even flinched. But today, something was different. I stepped inside, and his eyes were open. Barely, just slits, but open. I froze mid-step. My breath caught in my throat. "Grandpa?" My voice came out cracked and uncertain. He blinked once, slow, like it took everything he had. I rushed to his side, nearly knocking over the monitor cables. His hand, weak and trembling, shifted across the blanket. I grabbed it. "It's me. Sarah, you're okay. I'm here." He tried to speak. The ventilator hissed. "Don't strain," I said, tears already burning behind my eyes. "Just listen. You're safe." His eyes locked on mine, watery, clouded, but something in them burned, like the last flicker of a storm-stained lantern refusing to go out. I pulled the envelope from my pocket. "She paid him off," I said, "to end it, but he didn't. He came to warn me instead." His hand twitched again. Not a spasm, a signal. "Was it Linda?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "Did she try to sign the order?" His eyes blinked, once, sharp. "Yes." I leaned in closer. "I know about Jake, about the will, the land, the safe deposit box." He blinked again, then slowly, so slowly, he moved his lips. "She wants it all." His voice was faint, hoarse, each word like sand dragged across stone. "Don't let her—" I clutched his hand tighter, like I could lend him my own strength. "I won't," I said. "I swear, I'll fix this." A tear slid down his cheek. Or maybe it was mine. I couldn't tell. A nurse burst in behind me. "Oh my God, he's responsive!" She rushed to his side, pressing buttons, calling into her radio. Another nurse appeared seconds later. Everything became a blur of movement and beeping machines. I stepped back, breath caught between hope and panic. "Is he okay?" I asked. "He's stabilizing," the first nurse said, "but you need to go. He needs rest." I hesitated. "Please," she added, softer now. "Give him a chance." I nodded and backed out of the room. The door closed behind me with a soft click. I pressed my forehead to the glass. For the first time in days, I felt the smallest seed of hope take root. But I didn't get to hold on to it long, because Jake came sprinting down the hallway. His face was pale. "You need to see this," he said, panting. "Now!" We drove 10 minutes across town in silence. Jake's hands were tight on the wheel. The radio was off. No one spoke. He parked in front of an old post office. "I checked the key again," he said. "The one from the box. It's from a safety deposit branch here. Henry used to bring me here when I was a kid. Said he kept life's truths locked up where even time couldn't dig them out." The air inside the branch was cold and sterile. A receptionist led us down a narrow corridor to a vault. Jake handed over the key. The metal door creaked open. Inside, the box sat on a shelf. Small, ordinary. But the moment I lifted it, I knew it wasn't. It was heavy. Back at Jake's truck, I pried it open. Documents, photos, a cassette tape, and a will. Dated 3 months ago. Henry's handwriting covered the signature line, my name, and Jake's, as equal heirs. I stared at it, heart pounding. Jake flipped through the pages. He updated it. He was planning to give us everything. I reached for the cassette. On the label, scrawled in fading ink, "If they come for me before I can speak." I stared at the tape like it might explode. "We need to find a player," I said. "Something that can run this." Jake nodded, jaw set. But then I noticed something else, tucked at the bottom of the box. A torn photo, half of someone's face, the same man from the barn. I turned it over, a name scrawled in pencil, B. Calloway. Jake took one look and froze. "I know him," he said. "He worked with Linda's old real estate firm years ago. He disappeared after Henry refused to sell." My pulse kicked up. "You think he's back?" Jake didn't answer. But I already knew. That shadow outside the window hadn't been random. It had been a warning, and something told me we were running out of time. I stood outside the town hall, holding the cassette tape like it was made of glass and rage. My palms were slick with sweat despite the cool breeze sweeping through Willow Creek. The early evening sun cast long shadows across the concrete steps, but I couldn't feel anything except the weight of what I was about to do. Jake parked across the street. He didn't get out, just watched me through the windshield, nodding once. This was my fight. Inside, the meeting had already started. I could hear muffled voices clapping, the low hum of a mic being adjusted. The town council's monthly gathering, 10 folding tables, lukewarm coffee, polite arguments about zoning laws and road repair. Except tonight, Linda Mitchell was on the agenda. She'd positioned herself as the grieving daughter, poised to transfer ownership of her father's estate for the benefit of the community. A historical trust, a land donation, dressed up in bows and ribbons. A lie. I walked in, head high. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A fan oscillated lazily in the corner. Chairs squeaked as people turned to look. Linda stood at the front of the room, flawless as ever in her fitted blazer, one hand resting delicately on a stack of prepared remarks. She looked up and froze. Her smile faltered. I stepped forward. "Sorry I'm late," I said, my voice carrying farther than I meant it to. "I just wanted to be here for the part where you tell everyone how you plan to kill your own father." Gasps echoed. Someone dropped a pen. The air shifted, sharp and electric. Linda's expression didn't crack, at first. "Sarah," she said, voice steady, "this isn't the time or place." "No?" I stepped beside her at the podium, dropping the tape onto the table with a loud snap. "Because I think it's exactly the time. You want to talk about the estate? Let's talk about what's actually at stake." Her eyes darted to the cassette. Her lips tightened. I turned to face the room. 3 months ago, my grandfather rewrote his will. He named me and Jake as equal heirs. Linda was removed. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Mayor Brooks leaned forward in his chair. I kept going. She knew, and she hired someone, paid them, to end Grandpa's life before the new will could be made public. A woman in the back gasped. Linda opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "We have the payment records, wire transfers, a witness, and this," I pointed to the tape, "a message Grandpa left in case something happened." Jake appeared at the back of the room, arms crossed, nodding once when our eyes met. "You want to tell them what you did?" I asked Linda directly now, voice lower, sharper. "Or should I play the tape?" She stared at me, face pale but composed. Her voice, when it came, was calm, calculated. "They're lies," she said. "Twisted stories from a man who hasn't been in his right mind for years. He was delusional, paranoid, easily manipulated." "Then why try to silence him?" I fired back. "Why push the hospital to pull life support? Why pressure me to sign the paperwork?" Her silence was louder than her denial. People were turning in their seats now, whispering. The tide was shifting. Linda took a breath, straightened her shoulders. "Even if this is true," she said, eyes locking on mine, "do you really think this town will side with a dishonorably discharged soldier and a disowned brother over a woman who's donated more to Willow Creek than both of you combined?" I blinked. "Dishonorably discharged?" She smiled, cold and satisfied. "Check your file," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "There's a reason they sent you home early." The blood drained from my face. I could feel every eye in the room pivot, searching, judging. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to deny it, but the shock of it hit first, because it wasn't just a lie. It was a threat. She'd gone digging. She knew about the hearing, the complaint, the mistake I made overseas, the one I'd buried under medals and silence. I stepped back. Jake moved down the aisle fast. "That's enough," he growled. Linda turned to him, eyes gleaming. "You think she's the hero here? She's not. She's just desperate to fix her conscience." The mayor stood. "That's enough," he echoed. "This meeting is over." But no one moved, because the truth hung between us, half exposed, raw and bleeding. I found my voice again, barely. "I made mistakes," I said. "But I'm not the one who tried to murder my own father." Linda grabbed the cassette and slammed it into her purse. "You have no proof," she hissed under her breath. Jake stepped between us. "We'll see about that." Outside, the sky had turned bruise-colored, heavy with dusk. We stood on the town hall steps, wind pulling at my jacket. "She won't back down," I said. "She's just getting started." Jake nodded. "So are we." I looked down at the crowd still trickling out. Some nodded at me, others looked away. And then I saw him, Calloway, standing across the street beside a dark SUV, watching, just like before. The next morning, the lawyer's office smelled like old wood, dry paper, and something else I couldn't name. Maybe tension, maybe fear. Maybe the slow unraveling of a legacy built on secrets and lies. Jake sat beside me in a stiff leather chair, eyes locked on the polished floor like it held answers. The envelope with Henry's revised will rested on my lap, heavier than it should have been. Across from us sat Ms. Alcott, the family's estate attorney for nearly 20 years. Thin-framed glasses, gray-streaked hair in a tight twist, and a pen that tapped every few seconds against her legal pad like a metronome for broken families. "You're certain this wasn't forged?" she asked, though her tone wasn't doubtful, just careful. Jake looked up. "We found it in a secure deposit box, with a key only Henry had." I opened the envelope and handed her the will. "He signed it," I said. "Dated it. Witnessed by the notary at the branch. It's legit." She scanned the first page, then the second, eyebrows lifting just slightly. "Your mother doesn't know you're here?" I shook my head. "She's too busy spinning her version of the story around town." Ms. Alcott sighed. "Well, this version changes everything." She slid a large manila folder from her briefcase, setting it on the table with a soft thud. "These are the original estate documents. Prior to this," she tapped the revised will, "Linda Mitchell was the sole heir. She inherited the property, assets, and medical power of attorney." Jake leaned in. "But now?" "Now it goes to both of you," she said. 50-50, unless she contests it." "She will," I said flatly. "She already tried to end Grandpa's life to make sure this never surfaced." Ms. Alcott didn't blink. "Then we file for immediate injunction, probate pause. With Henry awake, even briefly, he can reaffirm this version. We'll have to act quickly." I nodded, my fingers tightening around the edge of the table. "What about Calloway?" Jake asked. Ms. Alcott looked confused. "I'm sorry, who?" "Real estate agent turned fixer. He's been circling the property for years. Linda might have used him to apply pressure." "I'll note it," she said, pen scratching. "But unless he's on record, he's noise." I swallowed hard. Noise doesn't follow you around in the dark. Noise doesn't break into barns or sit outside town halls like a phantom waiting to strike. Jake turned to me. "We need to go to the hospital. Henry has to confirm this while he still can." "I know." Ms. Alcott gathered the documents. "I'll file everything with the county before noon, but be careful if she feels cornered." "She's already dangerous," I said. Now she's desperate. The air outside smelled like wet soil and gasoline. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. "You okay?" Jake asked as we pulled away from the curb. I nodded, but my thoughts were miles ahead. If Linda found out we'd filed the new will, if she knew Grandpa had woken long enough to name names, if Calloway was still in town, the tape, the will, the truth. Everything was stacked like dominoes, and all it would take was one push to send it all crashing down. County General was quiet when we arrived. The ICU wing, dim and sterile, hummed with low machinery and whispered urgency. The nurse at the desk smiled faintly. "Room 412, she said. "He's been more alert today." Relief washed over me in a rush I hadn't earned yet. I stepped into Grandpa's room. He was propped up slightly now, tubes still in place, but eyes open, clearer. "Hey, kiddo," Jake said gently, moving to his side. Henry turned his head. His face lit up, softly, but the lines around his mouth trembled. "Hey, Grandpa," I said. "We found it. The will, the box, the key, everything." His mouth moved, but no sound came. "It's okay," I said. "You don't need to talk. Just listen." I reached into my bag and pulled out the will. "This changes everything, but we need you to confirm it. They're going to ask. And if you can, if you feel strong enough—" His fingers twitched. Then slowly, deliberately, he pointed toward the bedside table. Jake opened it. Inside, a notepad and pen. I handed them over, my breath stuck halfway between fear and hope. Grandpa's fingers wrapped shakily around the pen. The letters came slow, jagged, but they came. "Yes, my will." Jake exhaled. We looked at each other, then at him. Then came the twist I didn't expect. He scribbled again. "Sarah's birth cert." I frowned. "What?" He kept writing. Jake leaned closer. When I saw the words, I froze. "Not just granddaughter. Linda lied." My throat tightened. "What do you mean she lied?" But Grandpa's hand went slack. His head rested back on the pillow, chest rising with effort. Jake looked at me, stunned. "Sarah?" "What is he saying?" "I think—" Jake paused. "I think Linda, she's not your birth mother." The world tilted sideways. I stared at the notepad, the scrawl blurring. What does that mean?" Jake touched my arm. "We'll figure it out." But my mind was already racing. Not just betrayal, not just greed, but blood. Had everything I'd fought for, stood for, been based on a lie? The monitor beside Grandpa beeped steadily, like it didn't care what secrets were bleeding out onto the page. I grabbed the note, folded it into my palm, and stood. "I'm going to the courthouse," I said. "Let them try to bury us now." Jake nodded. "I'll follow." We left the room, footsteps echoing down the whitewashed corridor. But as we turned the corner, Linda stood there, blocking the exit, eyes cold, purse clutched tight. And behind her, Calloway, smiling. Calloway's smile twisted like he'd already won. Linda didn't speak. Her eyes scanned my face like she was searching for a weak point she could jab her way through. She looked thinner than before, drawn, wired, like too many sleepless nights and too many bad decisions had finally caught up. I stepped forward. "You're too late," I said. My voice felt calm, but my heart was hammering in my ribs. "The will's been submitted. Henry's awake. He signed a statement. You don't get to bury him or the truth." Linda's gaze flicked toward Jake, then back to me. "You don't understand what you've done," she said quietly. "No, Mom," I said. "I understand exactly what I've done. I stopped you." Jake moved to my side. I could feel his presence, steady and strong, like he'd finally stepped out of the shadows for good. Calloway opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "You say one word, and I hand the DA a copy of the wire transfer and that cassette. You'll both be answering questions before the end of the day." He blinked. The smirk faded. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folded paper from Henry's bedside, his handwritten confirmation. I held it in front of her. "He chose us, not you." For the first time, Linda looked like she might break. Her lips parted, and for a second, I saw something flash in her eyes. Not regret, something lonelier than that. She stepped back. One heel clicked softly against the tile. "You think this fixes everything?" she asked. "You think your little justice parade brings him back from what he's already lost?" "No," I said, "but it stops you from taking anything else." She stared at me, then down at the floor. When she looked back up, her voice was flat. "I'll see you in court." "No," Jake said, "you won't. You'll settle. Because if this goes public, everyone in Willow Creek will finally know what you really are." She didn't answer. She just turned and walked out. Calloway followed without a word. The door swung shut behind them with a soft hiss. And just like that, it was over. 2 weeks later, Henry passed in his sleep, peacefully. No machines, no pressure. Just me and Jake by his side, his hand in mine, his final breath soft and slow, like the closing of a book you didn't want to end, but knew had to. We buried him beneath the oak tree, the one that kept his secrets, the one that watched us uncover them. The town came. Even those who hadn't spoken to him in years, some out of guilt, some out of love. Linda didn't show. I didn't expect her to. Jake and I met with Ms. Alcott the following Monday. The inheritance finalized. The land was ours to protect, not sell. The deed signed over. The new will honored. She handed us the last envelope, Henry's final letter, to both of us. Jake read it first, then handed it to me. I read it twice before I could speak. It wasn't just about the land or the past. It was about letting go of the weight we'd both carried. His guilt, my confusion, the fractured love of a family stitched together with silence. He ended it with 7 words I'd never forget. You were always the best of us." Later that night, I sat on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the hills. The air smelled like summer soil and warm cedar. Crickets had started their nightly song. The swing creaked softly beneath me, and Jake sat on the steps, sipping coffee from Grandpa's old enamel mug. "I keep thinking about that tape," I said. He looked up. "I haven't played it again," I added. "I don't need to." He nodded. "He left us enough." I stared at the horizon, where the sky burned gold. "I used to think revenge was about burning down what hurt you," I said. "But it's not." Jake tilted his head. "What is it then?" "It's about making sure what hurt you never gets to hurt anyone else." He smiled, just barely. Then I guess we did it. We sat in silence for a while. The good kind. I thought about the little girl I used to be. The one who sat on this porch with scraped knees and too many questions. I didn't have all the answers now, but I had something better. Peace, closure, and a future that belonged to me. Family isn't always the people who raised you. Sometimes it's the ones who stayed when everything else fell apart. The ones who show up when it counts. The ones who rebuild what others tried to destroy. And sometimes it's the ones who finally let you see who you were all along.